What's up everybody? Today we're going to talk about something that is near and dear to my heart. Something that I take great pains to protect y'all from every time I write a script and upload a new video. And that is spoilers. Every single time I think I might ruin the experience of watching an anime that is brand new to someone, I honestly try my best to give a heads up to everyone and, here's the crucial part, sell you on the show before I do so that I can set up that this show is worth watching and worth keeping a few secrets here and there so you can get the full impact that I got when I watched it. How you experience a show with all of its twists and turns plays a big part in your overall enjoyment of a work of art. And since I'm an anime talking about guy, I would like for everybody to be on the same level as me when we're sitting here talking about anime stuff. However, I realize that not everybody shares this opinion. Some people, quite understandably, think that the whole spoiler culture in the weebosphere is just a minefield that ought to be blown up with extreme prejudice. One such person is Shannen, the anime Misfit, who reached out to me clear out of the blue one day seeing if I wanted to do a collab. We tossed around a few ideas and this is the one that we thought would be the most contentious and fun. She made her case that spoiler culture in anime is, in her words, dumb as shit, and 3 points contained in this video here. Link in the description too. I highly suggest that you watch it to get the full story. I agree with some of her points and take issue with some others. So let's dive right into it and see if I can make the case for our spoiler-adverse culture. Shannon's first point is that spoiling an anime by way of referencing the source material shouldn't even count since the source material oftentimes wildly differs from the final product that we get in the anime. See Tokyo Ghoul Route A for example. Any given anime is usually only ever going to cover a small section of its source material, and it is extremely rare that an anime attempts to adapt the entirety of the work. So what counts as a spoiler to the anime is completely up in the air. Sometimes entire arcs just get switched around like in Goblin Slayer, so a quote-unquote spoiler from the manga or light novel wouldn't even count as a spoiler because that's not how it played out in the anime. She makes a pretty good point here. It's hard to pin down what an anime will do at any given moment. But here's the thing. It's honestly 50-50 as to whether or not an anime will have some big shift from its source material. For every example of an anime going off and doing its own thing, there is a counterexample of an anime playing it pretty much directly by the book, like in My Hero Academia or JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. So this is something you have to take on a case-by-case basis. A plot point that might be a spoiler for JoJo Part 5 probably wouldn't even register in, say, ReZero because there are entire plot lines that are just omitted or dropped. The light novel and the anime might as well be two totally separate works and two totally different IPs. The other side of her argument is that when anime and its source material do differentiate, they often go full send with it, and make an anime original ending, usually with the author's blessing. This isn't just limited to anime either. Game of Thrones has taken some wild turns from its source material, and by the midway point of Season 5, the two had diverged so significantly that spoilers from one to the other were pretty much impossible to make. That and possibly one of the most badass characters from the book with a huge long arc was completely omitted. Rest in peace, Lady Stoneheart. One particular example of how anime and its source material differ that really stands out to me is when I delved into a comment thread on a video taking issue with the first episode of the Rising of the Shield Hero anime. In it, there were no shortage of people trying to use the light novel and manga adaptations to rectify the problems in the anime's presentation. But pretty soon disagreements between the light novel and the manga readers started to break out due to discrepancies in the two mediums, and an inevitable argument about which one was better started to pop up too. But then another guy rolled in and said that everybody was wrong because he had read the original web novel back in like 2012 or something, and then proceeded to spoil the entire ending of the story by pointing out that it ends in some bullshit time reset. And then a bunch of people who read the light novel or the manga said that this wasn't actually a spoiler because the whole thing would totally be fixed before it wrapped up in their adaptation. So we've had 4 different iterations of the Shield Hero story come across our desk, and they're all different. Wow, big surprise. Stories told through different forms of media often change drastically. Who would have seen that coming? Adaptations change from one to the other all the time, so each one should stand as its own work, completely independent of the others. Why this is so hard for some people to realize is just beyond me. Is one better than the other? Not really, because that's all a matter of taste and dependent on how you like to consume media. No grand mystery there, just different strokes for different folks. Shannon's second point against spoiler culture in anime is that there is such a deluge of new anime coming out that talking about anime that is a season or 2 old shouldn't even come with spoiler warnings, because pretty much everybody's forgotten about it and moved on to the next season. Again, girl's got a point. There are anywhere between 200 and 250 new anime shows, movies, ONAs, and OVAs coming out every single year, and that's not even counting the holdovers from the previous year. With this torrential downpour of anime in recent years, the idea of the anime classic that you absolutely have to watch and not spoil for anybody who hasn't seen it yet is pretty much dead. Everybody's so scatterbrained every 3 months that no one has the time or the effort level needed to go back and catch up on just a few shows from the previous season or 2. For most people, if you don't watch a show as it airs, then you probably never will watch it. Taking this into account, it honestly doesn't matter if you give away the ending to, say, 91 Days or Joker Game. They were decent shows, 7 out of 10 ratings, but nobody's gonna drop the next episode of Shield Hero or The Promised Neverland so they can go back and pick them up. The current anime culture expects and rewards the here and now. There is no incentive for viewers or critics to go back and pick up, say, the best anime of 2016 Girlish Number. In a world obsessed with chasing the algorithm and blurbing about the new hotness, nobody gives a rip about big-time shows that had their day in the sun less than a few hundred days ago. If you go and spoil the entirety of Akashic Records down in the comments right now, nobody's gonna care. What is Akashic Records, I hear you ask? Well, that's a pretty good question, my friend. You're not alone in asking that. It was the 4th most popular anime of the 2017 spring season, and the 12th most popular anime show of that entire year. And no one remembers it. It has faded almost completely into obscurity, and hundreds of other shows have followed in its footsteps in just the last couple of years. The idea of there being a new anime classic is all but dead. Spoilers are completely irrelevant. But what about the old anime classics? What about the anime that got big before this current anime boom that rely heavily on the viewer being pretty much a blank slate? In order to get the full effect, you gotta go in blind, and spoilers are very problematic to these shows. These are anime like Neon Genesis Evangelion, Paranoia Agent, or even Serial Experiments Lane. They almost demand that the viewer come into the show blind, otherwise you're missing out on a crucial component towards your overall enjoyment of the show. Also, it reminds me that 90s and early 2000s anime was frickin' weird, man. Is there a time limit to spoiling these classics? No, and I don't think there should be. There's only a small handful of shows that I would say fall under do not spoil under any circumstances, and generally people kinda sorta agree on what those shows should be. But there's a lot of branching out to cover some more niche shows, and that's where arguments break out and people get heated. Shannen's third and final point centers around long-running shonen battle shows like Boruto, Black Clover, Fairy Tail, and Dragon Ball Super. These shows can easily number in the hundreds of episodes, and a conversation about them can delve off into spoiler territory real quick if one person in the fray isn't up to date. It can be really frustrating having to tiptoe around hours of content trying to decide what is a spoiler and what is safe. But therein lies the solution, you see. To make my point, may I present the curious cases of One Piece and Kingdom Hearts. Two IPs with such a maddening array of content that is pretty much impossible to keep up with if you aren't waist deep in the fandom. Where spoilers begin and where common knowledge ends is pretty much completely up in the air. And if you're spoiled on one or two of these IPs, then it really doesn't matter because you're so inundated with information that it's honestly hard for one or two bits that might be spoilery to even register to you. One Piece and Kingdom Hearts are kept almost completely safe from the spoiler warriors by way of their sheer volume alone. Even if you did spoil some big crucial events in One Piece for me, and I picked up the show tomorrow, it might be months or even years before I actually run across it in the show. And by then I've probably forgotten about it, and my enjoyment of that series has not diminished in any way, shape, or form. The longer an anime goes on for, the less spoilers matter. In that respect, the best thing an anime can do to never let itself be spoiled is to just never end. The best way to keep your secrets is just to have a whole lot of secrets. And I suppose that about wraps up my deep dive into anime spoiler culture. Hopefully I've made my position on this issue a little bit more clear to everybody, and maybe even won over a few hearts and minds. I want to thank Shannen and the whole Anime Misfit community for this opportunity, and I'll leave a link to her channel down in the description. I'm honestly humbled that somebody would take the time and effort to hammer out something like this with me. It was a lot of fun. So do you agree with me? Do you agree with Shannen? Do you think we just both don't know what we're talking about? Let us know down in the comments. Until next time, take it easy.